Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And today is very fun. We are doing a Pixar ranking in honor of Inside Out 2. It's exciting. I'm extremely nervous about this film. I hope it'll be great. I hope it'll be high on the ranking, but I have my concerns. But of course, they have many great films and classics, masterpieces. It's a tough ranking to do. And I am film critic Grace Wagner, and Lasse Vogt is here. And thank you so much for coming on doing this with me.
Well, I'm very honored that you called me back again, and for once, for something that is a bit more positive than
Yeah,
the previous times I was
that's
on
true.
here.
Yeah, we had you on talking about the live action remakes, which is rough to talk about.
Yes, yes, there
Go.
were more bad than good, and this time it might be a
Yeah.
bit different.
But we did have you on Hallmarky's podcast talk about how to
Yes.
work holiday, and that was really fun. So
Oh
I'll
yeah,
put
indeed.
a link down to that. We had a great time talking about that really cute movie. So my list, my ranking, it's gonna ruffle some feathers. There's yeah.
All right, maybe mine
So
too.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah,
Like at
pretty
least when
good.
it comes, maybe not when it comes to the higher ups, but
Yeah,
maybe when it gets to the
the
ones
lower
which are
parts.
low on the list, or
Yeah.
maybe just in the middle.
Well, and this was just my own personal ranking as far as my enjoyment. It's not talking about like the skill level or popularity or any other factor except for which in what order would I choose to watch them.
Yeah,
So there we go.
same here. Absolutely. I had the same approach. Like, which one do I personally consider to be like the best, the most entertaining, and or like the most skillfully made, and which one did make me emotional the
Yeah.
most, or a
Yeah.
mixture of all of it.
Well, let's dive in. What do you have at number 27? There's 27 we're ranking.
Well, on number 27, I have the only movie I actually still had to watch to be able to make this list.
Ah,
We're talking about 27 feature-length movies here,
yeah.
which is quite insane, much more than the Disney remakes. And so, yeah, this one I didn't bother with originally, and this ranking finally gave me an excuse to watch it. My number 27, the lowest of the low, is Cars 3.
Oh, Cars 3, huh? Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. So why did it get the lowest of the low, below Cars 2?
Because it's shit. It's just so like I don't like the Cars franchise at all. I'm not a
Uh-huh.
car person,
Yeah.
and I originally already avoided the first one when it came out because it was like this doesn't look interesting to me. It's about cars, and I don't
Yeah.
care. And with like the Cars 2, maybe that's gonna be a controversial one coming up, but with Cars 3, I was just like, no, I'm just so done. And now finally watching it, it was just like this is only made because they kind of hit a dead spot. And like, yeah, this is gonna make some
Uh-huh.
merchandise money. And it's
Yeah.
just it re-emphasizes every single problem I have with this franchise, and that the world makes no sense. Lightning McQueen is such an insufferable prick in this movie. And it never made me emotional in any way. The score was quite good by
Uh-huh.
Randy Newman. And that's about it. I didn't really like the voice performances. I mean, I don't like this world in general. I don't like these
Uh-huh.
characters. It just absolutely did nothing to me. And that's why, and also maybe because it's just very, very fresh on my mind, just having
Right.
watched it days ago. But no, to me, it is by far the worst and least impressive Pixar film.
Ah. Yeah, it's definitely not like a masterpiece, that's for sure. I guess I have it a
Mhm.
hair higher, but not much. So so I have, and again, this won't surprise followers of my channel because they know I didn't like this. But I actually have 27. I have Turning Red at
Ooh.
27. Yes. I was not a fan of this. I thought that the mother especially was a complete cliche,
Hmm.
over the top, just uh like nails on a chalkboard for me. And it I admire what they were like trying to do, but to me it was undermined by just how insufferable the characters were, and I felt like the metaphor didn't really like play out. Like if it's
Yeah.
about because she's saying my panda, my choice. Well, you don't get a choice. Like puberty happens. Like you like kids don't have a choice. Like to make the panda like to contain the panda. That makes no sense. It's just something you have to deal with. And so I didn't feel like the metaphor was actually that like well thought out. I mean, if it was supposed to be about her period being the panda, then that also you have no choice. Like that's just it happens and you have to deal with it and it sucks. And it's hard, but there's no like decision about it. Like it just happens. And so I didn't even think it was that sort of on a metaphorical level was that well done or interesting. The animation I liked, kind of the anime influence. The band was fun, but I like that whole archetype of kind of the like angsty teenage, like kind of I don't know, like that is just not for me. And so I wasn't like super endeared to the characters. And the mom was just unhinged to me. And it's just like, you're not even making sense, like as a character, like, I don't know. And so just didn't like it. So there we go.
That's fair enough,
Yeah.
it's all down to what can you stomach in a way and how something works for you. It's higher on my list.
Yeah. It would
So
be
we
on
will
most,
talk
but
about that in detail maybe later. But okay, yeah, no, I'm pretty surprised that that one is actually the lowest one on yours.
yeah, yeah, I would not watch it again. It was at the least one I'd be inclined to watch again. But what do you have at 26?
26 is Cars.
Oh, okay. Oh, so Cars 2 is your highest of the franchise, huh?
Yeah, maybe, and I will get to it when we get to it. But yeah, Cars, because it's just, I think it's horribly boring.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the character interactions are kind of fun, but overall, it's a remake of a Michael J. Fox movie for the
Yeah,
most part.
Doc Hollywood. Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time, so the story was still fairly new to me. But it
Yeah.
still didn't change the fact that I don't care about cars. I don't care about car racing at all.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, overall, I wasn't impressed by it, and I felt I was really like left out of the target demographic. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
fine when a movie goes to another demographic you're not a part of, but
Right.
in especially in the case of Pixar, I think most of the movies they have something for everybody. And this one, when you don't like cars, there's pretty much nothing for you
Yeah.
here.
I mean, I also don't like Cars. I do have it a bit higher, but yeah, I mean, I get it. It is a little boring. It's not great. I do have Cars 2 at 26. I do think there's a certain degree of like delightfully bizarre kind of about this, and the animation is beautiful, especially when it's in Tokyo, is gorgeous. The colors and everything, and like there's just some like the fact they have a Pope car. So like, is there a Jesus car in this universe? That's what I wonder.
Ugh, it's just that's my big
And
problem with this whole franchise. The word just doesn't make a lick of sense.
I mean, it's a problem, but it's also kind of hilarious when you think about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's true.
but but I mean, it's not great, but it's I don't know. It doesn't actively annoy me like turning red. So
Oh,
that's
that's fine.
26. Um, what do you have at 25?
Well, smooth transition. 25 is Cars 2.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason why I like this better than Cars is because I like the spy stuff. I thought that was
Mm,
actually a really fun angle to take. And whenever there's like racing going on and something, yeah, it's boring. But the whole spy thing and with Michael Caine as the spy car and all of that, and also like the
yeah.
different characters who voice the villains, like Thomas Kretschmann as the like Doctor. Zünd Up or whatever he's called. Like,
Right.
all those like spy cliches and who they got to play those roles. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it focuses a lot on this movie is basically just an excuse of John Lasseter thinks Larry the Cable Guy is the king of comedy.
Yeah.
It's
It's a lot of
just
Mater.
yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
big vehicle for him. And yes, he is quite annoying. I think some stuff works, and it's not really down to him. It's down to what situations they put him in. For example, I really
Yeah.
like the thing where he is dressed up as a like as one of the evil cars, and then he accidentally reads too much information out about them. Like, hey, Mr. So and so, who is searched in 3 states for these and those crimes, and they're like, "What are you doing?" That stuff is
Uh-huh.
funny. And
Yeah.
some of the action stuff, I really like the collateral damage in this, how many cars basically get killed. I think that stuff is really funny.
Yeah.
And that's just because
It
of a
is.
spy.
It is funny.
Yeah,
I agree.
just because of a spy angle, I slightly prefer it compared to the other ones, but it's still not good.
Yeah. I can see that. I can see that. Well, so my next one is a movie I have not thought about since I saw it. I didn't hate it, but it's a misguided project. It's Lightyear is my next
Ooh, all right.
one. Yeah, I mean, I think if this had been just like generic space movie, I think I probably would have it a hair higher. But any attempt to tie it back to Toy Story and Buzz was just confusing and muddled and misguided. And the big reveal was so groan worthy
Mm,
in the third act. I did like the cat. That cat was adorable. There were some nice, I mean, it's beautifully animated, but what a like forgettable, bizarre movie. The idea of this is the movie that inspired Andy makes no sense. It
no,
just
absolutely
like
not.
any attempt to tie it to Toy Story was stupid. And yeah, it's just again not a movie I have not thought about one time since I saw it.
That's fine. It's a bit higher on mine. And we will get there.
Yeah.
But I absolutely understand your
Yeah.
motivation.
What do you have next?
Well, now we're at number 24.
Yes.
And my number 24 is The Good Dinosaur.
Hmm.
Because I think that is also a project that's incredibly misguided. You can tell the behind the scenes issues they had with that. And I was like, oh, I see. When it got to like the end credits and it had like 7 or 8 screenwriters or whatever,
Yeah.
where I was like, oh, I see. Because it's so weird. It's such a weird movie in that it looks so gorgeous when it comes to the landscapes. Absolutely amazing. And then as soon as that cartoony looking dinosaur pops up for the first time, it's just this huge clash and a big problem. And overall, it's a story you've seen a million times, and it's if they don't make it in any way more interesting. I think Ice Age did something like this way better, and that was in the early
Yeah.
times of computer generated movies. And the ending got me in a way. I thought the like goodbye scene was quite emotional, and it's visually really really nice, and so that's why I can't really fault it. But I other than that, the movie didn't have a lot of to offer to me, so that's why it's so low.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely has its flaws, that's for sure. For me, next is where this will be another hot take. I have Elemental next. I just was not
Ooh,
a fan of this. I felt like I've seen this movie a million times in between Zootopia and Monsters Inc. And Inside Out and this, we're going behind the scenes of into the world of whether it's the world of luck or the world of emotions or the world, and now this is the world of elements. And I thought that Ember was a really unlikable character. I wasn't invested in this romance between the two of them. They spent a lot of time just kind of like around the city, like talking about permits and talking about like I don't know. I just was it was just not for me. There was some nice animation, but that was about all that I uh I felt like it was extremely derivative. So
I
that's
see, I
yeah.
see. Yeah, it's higher on mine, but I get the problems you have with it.
Hmm. So what do you have next?
Number 23. Oh boy. Toy Story 4.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, from the get-go, I thought it was incredibly unnecessary because the third one kind of had a perfect ending. And this one, I only saw it once. I saw it when it came to Disney Plus eventually because I didn't bother with it in the theater because I didn't want to pay any money for this. I didn't want to encourage them to make more, and it didn't help, clearly.
Yeah.
Looking at the most recent developments,
Yeah.
it's just, it's it's such a I don't really remember all that much. Like I thought the villain stuff was forced. I thought the new, what they made marketing wise with the new like garbage character they have is was just so I don't know. It felt very wrong, and I didn't like the ending. It's just overall it was like why are you know, basically canceling the really happy and nice ending of the third movie. And that's just this
Hmm.
whole thing. And it's just like, yeah, let's throw them in distressing situations and all of that. And some of the toy stuff is fun, some of the ideas. But overall, I didn't have a lot of fun with this. So
Hmm.
I just was, yeah, I was not impressed.
I can see that. I have Cars 3 next.
Hmm.
And the thing I liked about this movie, I mean, it is, I think, beautifully animated, but I liked the Cruz character. I liked the idea that she had basically kind of accepted the fact that she was never going to be able to race. And she like that's so often, I think if you're in like a marginalized group, it's not like you're like actively kind of fighting against it. You just kind of you don't even kind of acknowledge the fact that that is something that you've lost, right? You
Yeah.
don't even like try. And so she kind of needed Lightning to be like, you're coming in now. Like, I'm going to make this happen for you. And I think that that's kind of true for reality. A lot of times is that we have to literally shove people in and give them that spot that they never even like thought about trying to get. It wasn't even something denied of them because they didn't even try. And so I thought that that was. I mean, I know I'm probably reading too much into a Cars movie, but I just liked that character arc for her. And then of course once she's given that chance, then she rises to the challenge and she can do it. And so I liked that in the story, and so that's that that's why I have it so high.
Yeah, I understand that whole motivation. I just didn't find that character all that likable because she just
Mm,
constantly berates Lightning McQueen for, oh, you're so old. And I'm like, first of
mm.
all, he's not, and he doesn't, even though, Owen Wilson is much older than the character he's playing, he doesn't sound old. It's not like he's one of those like
Yeah,
crusty
that's
old
true.
cars, or
Well,
like the,
and
it's,
yeah, they have like Model Ts and stuff in this world. And so in when do you become old? Like it really is a
no, it's
what is
just,
it?
it also like, it's not a good motivation when you're just constantly calling someone old, you
Yeah, that's
know?
fair.
It,
That's fair.
that really isn't that's not good and it's not sympathetic and I'm like I don't like Lightning McQueen but the fact that they just constantly said oh you're so old I was no
Yeah,
you're really
that's fair.
wrong about
Right.
that and it just really annoyed me the whole time and I'm not at the age where I'm like oh I'm self-conscious about my age or something no
Yeah.
that's still far in the future but this here was just really unreasonable and really
Yeah,
needlessly mean.
that's true. That's true. It's definitely not a perfect film. What do you have next?
All right, number 22. Oh boy. Some people are gonna hate me. Um, Soul.
Ah, okay. So you have Soul pretty low too. I don't have it like super high, so we're not
Hmm.
probably as far off as you think. But yeah.
Well, okay, I saw this as a like thanks to a pre-screener link,
Mm-hmm.
because we got to see it like a little bit early, when it got, released on Disney Plus during that whole like COVID phase and all of that. And so, I had basically early access to it. And I was with the concept for a lot of it. And then it comes to the point where he and, number 22, they return. And, I mean, most people have seen the movie. Like, I'm gonna just spoil it, whatever. And then he's in the body of a
Yeah.
cat. And
Yeah, that's where it loses me as
yeah,
well.
that's why it was just completely
Yeah,
out. And because the whole other
I
stuff
agree.
I've found pretty interesting and enjoyable. And I get that, she learns to embrace life and all of it, or they or whatever. It's not quite determined. She just chooses to sound like a woman. And all of that stuff, that's fine. But I really had a whole problem because that scenario is just so played out. And I was like, you could have done a lot more with this whole stuff, and it gets a bit too complicated and technical, and at the end it's again like this like forced climax with with kind of like a monster, like a villain that needs to be defeated, and I'm like, it's
Yeah,
not really
I
into this. And also I
agree.
have another problem, and something that a few years ago that was kind of like brought to my attention. I think it was thanks to a Twitter thread or something. But something I noticed thanks to that when it comes to animation and
Hmm.
people who are not white in animation,
Yep.
because it seems like most of the time, whenever they have a non-white main character in an animated movie, they transform that character
Yeah.
into something that is not, skin color specific.
Yeah,
So
I mean
for a
it's
lot
true.
of
Princess and the Frog, Spies in
yes,
Disguise, this Soul.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
just really it happens too often to not be a thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I find that a bit problematic. And I'm not want to be like, oh, I'm white knighting for other people or whatever. But and I'm
Yeah.
sure like
No, I agree.
people of certain ethnicities, they have called those filmmakers out as well. But it's certainly something I also notice and have a
Hmm.
problem with. And so
Yeah.
that's also just a thing. And I think like the voice work is fine, the animation is creative, the score has some interesting parts, but for the most part, I was just it felt like a very unpersonal Pixar
Yeah, it's
film.
very messy. It's a very, very messy film, and yeah, I agree.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Oh, my next is Where I Have the Good Dinosaur. I am a sucker
Hmm.
for stories about friendship, but I think I like this more than most. But this sort of developing friendship between Arlo and Spot, I thought was very sweet, and the that scene with like the sticks, and they realize that he's missing his family. That whole scene was very sweet,
Hmm.
and so I liked it. The fireflies scene is also beautiful. And the cartooniness of Arlo didn't really bother me that much personally. It's a little slow, but and I haven't like had a great desire to watch it again. But I think I do like it probably more than most seem to. But yeah, it's not perfect by any means. But what do you have next?
All right, number 21, Lightyear.
Okay, yeah.
This was also one I saw early. They did a critic screening when I
Hmm.
lived in Berlin, and I went there with other critics, and they were also like pretty mixed on it. And I think everything that has to do with like if they didn't have that
Yeah,
opening text, which I'm pretty sure they just added at the 11th
yeah.
hour, then I think a lot of people would be a lot easier on that movie because as the fact that they are pretending this is the movie that Andy
It's
saw in the
ridiculous.
theater, it
So
absolutely
stupid.
doesn't work and doesn't make sense in the slightest for
Yeah.
so many reasons. Because everything else, I think, is pretty nice. Like this, how it's like this thing with time travel,
But the
basically, in a
reveal, the
way.
villain reveal is Groner.
It's kind of a groaner. It's still a bit of, it's something I didn't really expect. I mean, that doesn't make it a good twist. The same problem that the Dark Knight Rises has, basically.
Yeah.
But I still was with it for the most part because I thought the characters were fun and likable, and I liked that, it was a bit, I don't know, gritty. It felt like something a bit different for Pixar.
Yeah.
And I also had a brief interview with the producer and the director
Oh,
of the
fun.
film. And they talked just a bit about it, and but no, it was kind of like a very like 5 minute wishy-washy interview or whatever. But they seemed
Cool.
enthusiastic and were really nice about it. And I just asked a couple of like specifics because at
Sure.
that point I had already seen the film. But yeah, so I for the most part had fun with it just as this like kind of interesting space adventure. But
Yeah.
we already know what the problems are.
Well, my next one is where I have Onward.
Mm,
I think that as the brother story, I think it works pretty well. Especially, I really do like the ending.
yeah.
That he sacrifices this experience, for his brother to have it. I think was really sweet, and especially if you know the backstory for Dan Scanlon
Mm,
and him losing his father. And I mean, I think the stuff with with just the pants character, I don't think that really works that well. It's supposed to be real funny, but I don't know. I like the overall aesthetic. I think is fun, sort of this 70s fantasy kind of aesthetic. I think they could have done like more with it, been a
yeah,
little more
absolutely.
creative with it. But yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable little movie, I'd say.
Oh yeah, it's higher on mine, but I'm a sucker for fantasy, and I
Mm,
really liked what they did with the whole hallmarks basically of fantasy, and
mm,
made it like more. It's something that's not entirely original, but they still did a good job with it for the most part. I thought. I like
mhm.
the cast, I like the scenarios, and I thought most of the stuff was kind of cute and
Yeah.
creative, and so it's higher. It's much higher on mine actually,
Oh, okay, cool.
but I get that some people might be a bit more reserved about it.
I just wish that the plot they'd gotten for them was a little bit better. It's a little like the fact that nobody has done this, solved this quest before, like when it all just kind of falls into play, it feels a little like, um, and yeah, the stuff with the half pants thing didn't really land for me. But what do you have next?
Number 20 is Brave.
Uh-huh.
And this has the same problem as Soul, because I was with it until the mother gets turned into a bear.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's when I almost left the theater because I was so angry. Because at that moment, I was like, okay, I know exactly how the rest of this movie is going to play
Mhm.
out. And I was so frustrated about that.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those movies where later on you found out that this was a huge mess, the whole production,
Yeah.
where basically like the female director was booted off and another male director took over. I heard from one source that the witch wasn't even part of the movie until half of the animation was already done.
Mhm.
So it's messy. You can tell it's a bit messy. They hide it for the most part, but it's not at all what that early teaser promised us because it
Yep.
looked like, oh my God, Pixar's doing like a Hayao Miyazaki film, and it's not that. But I thought the cast was good, and I liked the whole aesthetic. I liked the music a lot, but also I didn't like. I found it very illogical that they have so much emphasis on, oh, this is like a man's world, and you have to follow the rules and the man. But then again, the queen really seems to be the one who has the trousers on, basically.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
true.
she's the one who bosses her around, and her father really doesn't care. And I'm like, it's so weird. Why? I mean, it's like the whole like, yeah, tradition working together and all that. I like the ending in that regard, where the mother basically has to be violent and proactive, and Merida actually does something that's diplomatic. And so the roles are switched. And I think that
Yeah.
stuff is fun. But it's an unfocused movie. Some of the comedy works, some of the epicness works, but it's a weird mishmash of things that doesn't quite come together. And like I said, the whole bear thing. I mean, I should have called it out earlier because they hint at it a lot, but it's very, very frustrating, that whole aspect, and
Yeah.
that's why I don't
Yeah.
rewatch it a lot.
I also have Brave at 20, and I agree with everything you said. I think they really set it up the first 15 minutes, the whole opening montage sets up, this is going to be an adventure. We're going to be storming the castle. There's going to be, sword fighting and archery, and like this is going to be exciting. And then it just becomes this domestic dispute between mother-daughter movie that becomes this whole other thing, and really unsatisfying. And I don't know what it is about animated films where people turn into bears, but they're not good. They're bad. And this wasn't great. I like Merida as a character. I love her hair.
Oh my God.
Absolutely beautiful. And it has its moments, but yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I mean, like, the whole movie existing is worth it just for the joke they do in Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's a shame because it had so much potential. I mean, I remember when I first saw the trailer, I was just like, I was so excited. And yeah, so it's a bummer. It really could have been great. But
yeah. But okay, this is our first overlap.
Yeah.
Like, both of us, the same thing. It didn't take this long with the Disney remakes. So let's see if there are going to be more overlaps.
What do you have at 19?
19, Finding Dory.
Yeah, I have it at 18, so we're close.
Oh, nice. So we can basically kind of like,
yeah.
But I thought it was cute, basically. Yeah. It's just for a movie that didn't need to exist. I thought it was pretty cute and moving in the right parts, and they do some funny stuff with new characters. And I think I saw it twice or something, but I don't remember a whole lot. But I thought, like, the stuff where they needed to get emotional, I thought that stuff worked. The climax was pretty out there for a movie like this. It was something quite unexpected.
Yeah.
And it's ludicrous, but it's fun. On the whole, it's just a cute, fun little sequel.
This was the era where it seemed like every single animated film that had animals in it, they had to drive a car.
Yeah.
And how are they going to do that with marine animals? But they did. They managed to do it, and it's wild. But yeah, I mean, it's cute, and Baby Dory is adorable, and kind of building on that character is cute. I have Incredibles 2 at 19. I did enjoy it. I liked them kind of having Bob be the one that's at home trying to deal with the kids. I thought that was like well done, and it does feel like a little bit of like just a copy of the first movie. And why couldn't they have done something? I don't understand really why they had to keep them the same age. Why they couldn't have, I don't know. There just feels like there was more potential to do something different that would be more memorable. But I mean, I had fun with it.
Yeah, I see the wasted potential. I talked about this on one of my other podcasts with on Fans About Films. I talked about this briefly with Tom Crowley, and we talked a little bit about Incredibles 2. And I think the reason why they didn't make a time jump and had them the same age is because they wanted more baby shenanigans.
Mm.
And that stuff is funny in the movie.
But, I guess you'd have to change the character. You'd have to design a whole new character. That's true. Yeah,
but that's the reason. Basically, one of my brothers is a huge fan of the first movie, so much he considers it so perfect that he doesn't want to see the sequel ever because he doesn't want the original to be tainted. And I'm like, there's really not a whole lot that can be tainted. It's kind of more of the same, but it doesn't do anything. And it doesn't do anything that casts like a shadow on the first film. It
Right.
doesn't ruin it at all. It's
Yeah.
just more.
Right. Yeah, it's not one of those sequels where it's like, wow, you really like exposed unpleasant aspects of the character I never thought about, or something
Yeah,
like that.
no.
Sometimes they'll do that. And so a sequel I'm kind of worried about that with Inside Out too, to be frank. But we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't say in this one it's just kind of rinse and repeat, but it doesn't hurt the first movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. So what do you have at 18?
18. Okay, some more people are gonna hate me now. Toy Story 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This film, I think I saw it later, like after it won the Oscar or whatever. It was like this huge buzz about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it and I was like, this buzz is kind of undeserved. Because it's not like it's a bad movie, it's a good movie. But it feels in so many aspects like such a copy of Toy Story 2. It has so many aspects of it that are just, kind of copied over. With a lot of scenarios and also like the character dynamics and everything.
It's more of an escape movie than Toy Story 2.
Yeah, that's fun. But the whole thing in terms of like what how the climax, is in this kind of like environment that is very similar. The villain is very similar, right down to him kind of like, walking with a cane and stuff. And the opening being like this big, elaborate kind of dream sequence in a way. And in the second one it's a video game, and in this one it's this elaborated stuff where it's in the play world basically. And it's not that it's a bad movie, it's a really good one. I just thought of out of all of the animated films that were nominated for an Oscar in that year, it was by far the weakest for me. I think How to Train Your Dragon really should have earned that spot. And I don't know, it's ending wonderful, new characters, a lot of fun. Just overall, I thought other things were better, and this one is it's just it's a Toy Story movie, and it's a really good one. But
yeah, I would have given it to Tangled that year, but
sure.
I love that movie. But so 18 I have Finding Dory, and then at 17 is where I have Soul. And I agree with most of what you said. I think when the movie loses me when he becomes a cat. I still think it was like kind of ballsy of them to like make a family film about a middle-aged teacher that wants to be a blues musician. But I guess that's why it's also kind of frustrating that when he becomes a cat, because I feel like it kind of loses what was like interesting about the movie and the characters, and we've been in this existential place, and we're asking these deep questions, and then all of a sudden becomes like crazy antics with the cat, and
it's such a huge detour, like over half an hour or something.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess I have it this high just because I do think it is I do think it has some really nice moments, and the music and the kind of the questions it asks about what you do, what to make a meaningful life is interesting. And I just wish it wasn't so messy and into kind of telling that story. But like, is he necessarily going to be happier as a musician than he is as a teacher? Like, that's sort of interesting. He thinks so, but maybe not. And but do I think it wasn't better than Wolfwalkers, which it beat that year. So that makes me kind of bummed out, but it's okay. That's how I feel about it.
It's okay. That's fine.
And I was expecting I was going to love it because I just had loved all of Pete Docter's films previous to it. So I did have very expectations going into it, and it was a bit disappointing.
I was ready to love it, certainly.
Yeah, same. Yeah. So what do you have at 17?
My 17 is Elemental. Because I actually found the characters quite likable, and I found the love story engaging and all of that. What I didn't like was the whole like ticking clock element of, oh, this flood is gonna come and all of that, because
Yeah, I
this
agree.
was just unnecessary baggage. I would really like more of these movies to be kind of like a slice of life thing without that
Yeah.
big of a conflict. And it's again one of the films that's very, very personal to the director, and you can tell that there are personal experiences woven
Mhm.
into it. And I think all of that stuff is really nice. One of the problems I have with the movie is, aside from the ticking clock disaster, is that this world also doesn't quite work in terms of that these like fire people, they could so easily die in this world. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't take much to just kill them. And
Right.
this is a world that's so hostile towards them that, and I get the allegory, but it doesn't quite work when it's that extreme.
Well, I also didn't really get why she turned on her dad. Like at the beginning of the movie, she seems perfectly happy, like running the store, and by the end, I felt like she'd kind of villainized him, and I was like, "What?" I don't know. I felt like that could have been
It's I mean it's
massaged a little bit in screen. And I don't know. I just feel like the brain trust lately has been, if it's even exists at all, has been really letting us down in this Pete Docter era. It's like they're so concerned about telling personal stories that they forget that that process of whittling down and refining the stories to make them work was so important in making the masterpieces that they had at the beginning. And it's just the scripts are just letting me down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit messy here and there.
Yeah.
And it's also so funny how they made such a big emphasis in the marketing on like this Earth character who just hits on her even though he's so young, and then he's barely in the movie. He's such a small
Yeah.
part of the film. It's
Yeah, that
just
was
so
weird.
weird.
I
And
agree.
just the whole thing,
And
and
why
the
are they
fact,
spending all this time running around trying to get permits? It's like, what?
yeah, I mean,
You
it's
have this
I
whole
get it.
world. It was
Yeah,
bizarre.
I get it, to tell this like relatable story
It
in
was
a
weird.
fantastical world. We've seen this a lot of times, even in family films. But and also the fact that she turns on her father, I thought that was pretty well explained in the movie, because like early on as a child, she's pretty eager, and then she figures out, actually I can't handle this stress really well, and I've seen kind of like more of, I want to see what can I do more with my life. And then she meets other people who encourage her
Mhm.
to embrace that side of her life and all of that. And I thought that all of that stuff was pretty, reasonable
Mhm.
and relatable, and that was all fine. And it's, it's a flawed film. But I
Yeah.
thought it was also for something that I originally thought, yeah, I'm never gonna see this, basically. But when I was curious, watched, and I was like, this is much better than I expected it to be. Especially the last scene with
Mm.
the ships. I thought it was incredibly moving.
Mm. Well, my next one, so I've Soul at 17. My 16 is where I had Monsters University.
Me too.
Ah, okay. I always felt like this is a little bit underrated. I like the idea of them basically coming to the conclusion that they don't even like need to go to school in a family film. I think it was like actually kind of creative. And again, I like friendship stories, and I think that it's a nice friendship story. And I think it was also kind of ballsy of them to tell a story where the character's big dream in life is doesn't work out. It's not right. It's not his. It's the wrong dream. And
Yeah.
his I and to because that's very rare in a film for families to have, usually, oh, you can achieve your dreams, you can do anything you want, like is a good message, and but like how much more interesting to tell kids your dream might not work out, and that's okay too, and you're going to figure out something else, and that may be great as well. And so I appreciate it on that level. And I think it gets kind of lost in the scare games. They go on a little too long. And it's not perfect, but I do think it's a little underrated.
Yeah, I think so too. This movie gets a lot of crap actually from a
Mhm.
lot of people, and it's like, yeah, it's this typical like university shenanigans film just in this monster universe, and I think they find creative scenarios with all of that, and really funny stuff, and the new characters. Like, so some of the gags are actually quite inspired, I think, when it's like with like a cutesy mother. All right, I'm gonna stay here and listen to my music. When it's like this like death metal stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's good.
Some of the other stuff is like so well timed. I think the biggest problem is that we already know the outcome when we've seen the first movie, because he isn't gonna achieve his dream, and they spend so much time emphasizing, this is my big dream and I'm gonna do this and all of that. Also the stuff when it's like, oh, I kind of cheated for you. I thought that stuff worked. I think the whole climax was actually quite creepy and atmospheric.
Yeah.
When they're in the human world and all that stuff, I think that stuff works really well. The end montage is great. It's so much fun. And and also like, them coming back to these characters they made so iconic. I thought all of that stuff was pretty nice. Like overall, it's just, a fun film.
Yeah. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Susan Mallory's new book, For the Love of Summer. Ready for a story that hits you right in the feels and makes you believe in the power of friendship and resilience? Check out New York Times bestselling author Susan Mallory's For the Love of Summer. Experience Allison's roller coaster ride of life, grappling with financial troubles and emotional highs and lows, and finding unexpected allies. Unravel the intricacies of family ties, the solace of true friendship, and the unwavering spirit that propels us forward. Grab your copy of For the Love of Summer at your favorite bookstore or use the affiliate link below and discover a story that will leave you asking, what would you do? That's For the Love of Summer, available today wherever you purchase your books. So, all right. Well, at 15, that's where I actually have the first Cars movie. And I agree with your critiques. Like, the world is not great and lightning is kind of insufferable. But I guess the reason why it gets 15 for me is I think the homage or tribute to small town America and Route 66 and that, like, the nostalgic part of it, I think is very winning to me. And so that kind of wins me over. I do think it's ridiculous. The world is, I don't know, but I think that there's some really beautiful animation in it, and just sort of an homage to small town Americana, and like I said, Route 66. Anyway, I have it at 15.
Yeah, I guess it's much more relatable to actually, to Americans than to the rest of the world. And that's one of the problems. I have another big problem I have with the overall Cars franchise is the filmmaking, specifically the framing of the characters in shots. Because when you are dealing with sentient cars, it's kind of hard to get variations when it comes to shots, when it's like, close up of faces or whatever. So basically every dialogue scene is shot reverse shot of the whole car, just kind of standing there and delivering lines. And they can't really move around. They can't, make gestures and whatever. And that's why those movies come across so stiff and stale and boring and really uninspired when it comes to the actual filmmaking.
I can see that.
And that's something that always sticks out to me compared to other animated films.
So what do you have at 15?
My 15, oh boy. Oh boy. Everyone's gonna hate me.
Okay.
You are gonna hate me.
Okay.
This is below so many other films.
Okay.
My number 15 is Toy Story.
Okay.
So much below. It's a
Uh-huh.
groundbreaking film. It's a really good film. I just think so many other Pixar films, are better than this. And it's not because the animation is dated now. That isn't a problem for me at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Like, it's still work. It's still wonderful. It's such a wonderful, great, fun film. I just think, a lot of other Pixar films simply are better than this.
Yeah.
Now.
Hey, I always say, like, when doing a Pixar ranking, I have a pretty solid top 5, and then the rest is then I have like a 10 car pile up for the next after that. So I get it.
But that's really my problem.
Much higher.
My problem when it comes
but you know, I love friendship stories are a favorite of mine. So
Yeah, that,
yeah,
that stuff is fun, and you know, and
yeah.
it's just in the like middle field in the way that's where things kind of get muddled with me.
Mm-hmm.
Those were like
Mm.
the hardest to rank. The lowest ones were easy.
Yeah,
The
I
high
agree.
the high ones were pretty
Yeah,
easy. In the middle, it really gets difficult.
sure.
And I think one of the aspects I don't like about it is I think the score is quite annoying, actually. I think
Oh, huh.
it jumps around too much. It's like
Oh.
from shot to shot, it kind of like changes tempo. And I don't like that. It's too Mickey Mousey for my taste.
Mm.
But that's basically like the big criticism I have of it. The
Yeah,
rest of it, you know, it's fun, it's creative, it's groundbreaking for a good reason. And yeah,
yeah.
nothing to add really.
Fair enough. All right, I have Bug's Life at 14.
Ooh,
Love. Yeah,
14. I
I
mean,
do.
didn't we talk about what's your 15 then?
15 is Cars.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry.
Yeah.
So 14 also A Bug's Life. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I really enjoy it. I mean, it's this kind of standard Magnificent Seven plot that, you know, we've seen a lot in movies, but I'm fine with that. Some really fun characters. Someday I'll be a beautiful butterfly and everything will be better. It's a rock. I've spent a lot of time around rocks. Great. Hopper's a really fun villain.
Hmm.
And so that's good. I mean, I really do enjoy it. I would say it's underrated as far as Pixar films. It kind of gets forgotten, but it's really fun.
Yeah, I think so too. It's I think it's weird that the music sounds so westerny, but I guess that was during the era where every Randy Newman score sound like that. I think it is by far it features his worst song ever for the end credits. It's a bug, you're the
Oh,
bug. I like
I
bugs.
forgot about that. Yeah, I can see that.
That's horrible. But the rest I think is pretty fun. I think the whole story works. It's kind of like this, you know, it has a bit of like, you know, Magnificent Seven
Uh-huh.
ish things here and there. And it's just like how he mistakes these circus people for warriors and all of that. You know, and then also all the villain stuff, you know, it's intimidating, it's great. I don't like the princess. I think she's such a stick in the mud. And you know, I thought the
I can
princess
see
character
that.
in Ants is much better.
Hmm.
And I mean, but that those are just the, you know, those small issues. The rest, I think, is like a really fun
Yeah.
adventure story and how they play with scale and everything. I think technically it holds up pretty well.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a fine film.
Yeah. Well, my number 13 is where I have Toy Story 4.
All right.
Yeah, it's a little higher than you, but I recognize its flaws. But I liked the fact that they gave, because these toys, if you really think about it, and maybe they overthought it, but think about it, the toys are kind of in this cycle of like where they're enjoyed, played, and then they're stuck, and then they're played again, and they're stuck, and they're played again, and it's kind of brutal when you actually start, if you think about the sentient life, like, and how could they have kind of an ending, and that's why it makes no sense. I mean, I was willing to go with them for this, but another one, like, what else are you going to do? It makes no
Yeah.
sense. But like, I liked the fact that they were like, okay, how do we kind of, like, that Toy Story 3 for me was a good ending for Andy, but how do we end things for Woody? And so for him to kind of get his goodbye with Bo Peep, I thought it was good. And I think that the I love the animation and the just the arc for Woody, I thought was good. So that's where I have it at 13.
But yeah, the one thing I didn't mention is that I really liked about the film was the Key and Peele characters.
Yeah, they were
Like,
fun.
they were so funny, and there's one shot in specific where they play through all of these like scenarios where they're kind of like, you know, messing with a shop owner. There's this one
Yeah,
shot when
that
it's
was
like this
fun.
whole build up when she goes to bed, and then they rise next to the bed like horror film characters, and I died.
Yeah.
That was so funny. And yeah, all of that stuff. And But yeah, I already talked about the
Yeah.
problems I have with it, but for the reasons why it's higher for you, absolutely understandable.
So what do you have at 13?
My 13 is Turning Red.
Mm-hmm.
And because I liked the characters a lot, I liked the interactions a lot, and I understood the mother-daughter thing, and also because when people say, "Oh, I found the characters annoying and all of that," and the teenage girls characters and all of that, I was like, that's one, that's kind of the point, and second, they feel very realistic in that regard. They feel like real kids, and they feel like this is how these kids would interact. And I really like the whole dynamic of this quartet, basically. And I thought that stuff was pretty funny. And yeah, the allegory, yeah, might not work completely, but I still thought it was a fun film. And also, again, felt like a very personal film. Like this was the phase where we really, and it's not that long ago, when they really like experimented with the animation and the types of story they tell. It doesn't look like a typical Pixar film, and that's one of the points I really like about it. And so I don't have a whole lot to add other than I actually found it quite enjoyable and fun
Yeah.
because it felt so individual.
I can see that. Yeah, when you do something that individual, it's either going to kind of work or not work. For it's going to be, I think, a little more divisive. I mean, most people really enjoyed it. It just wasn't for me. But for me, number 12 is where I have Toy Story 3. Yeah, and the whole escape part of it, I think, is really fun.
Yes.
The Ken and Barbie, I've never been more hilarious. Love all of that. The ending, I love. Just overall, a very enjoyable film. The thing that holds it back a little bit is I do think it gets a little over the top when they're getting be melted down. The incinerator
That is
scene.
too much.
It's too much. I agree, and it's just like, it just pushes it too far. And I know some people, that's like their favorite part, because it's like, wow, it was real ballsy, but like it just was too much. Like, I guess you either go with that or you don't. And my nieces, none of them like this movie.
Yeah, I understand.
And so that it was also kind of like, because they didn't have a good experience, like I didn't have as. I really enjoyed it, but it's why it's lower than other people it's why it's lower than other films on this list. But
it gets too nihilistic and dark in a few parts. Have you seen the YouTube video of this one guy who edited the movie and showed it to his family? And it's the big scene during the climax when they're all about to get melted down. It's like the last thing, the last shot before they actually get saved, and then he cuts to black, and then he cuts to credits with this like really sad piano version of "You Got a Friend in Me," and the whole family, that's the end. And he waits until the next day when he actually says,
gosh,
"No,
that's
this is
cruel.
actually
Cruel."
But look this up. I don't like.
That's funny. I would say
I think people. It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be hard to find this on YouTube. It's absolutely hysterical. It's so funny.
What you have at 12?
My 12 is Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
My favorite of the Toy Story films. I think this movie is just so fun. It doesn't it doesn't let up at all. It doesn't, it's just constantly like things happening, and it's jokes and it's drama, and the new characters are so much fun, and the whole scenario is really interesting as well. It's overall it's one of those like perfect sequels, and ironically it's one they turned around in a very short amount of time, like in about a year or something. And because Disney kind of pressured them make a sequel to Toy Story, and Disney told them it doesn't have to be good. And Pixar said, no, it has to be. It absolutely has to be. And it's a wonderful, it's close to a perfect sequel in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than
I agree.
It's a really, really wonderful, fun film.
I mean, the only thing, because I love friendship stories, I kind of wish that I kind of wish that Buzz and Woody weren't separated for pretty much the whole movie. Kind of wish they were together a little more, but yeah, you'll see I have it higher. So yeah, At number 11, and this is a downgrade from where I had it in the last ranking that I did. I actually have The Incredibles at 11.
Ooh.
I know. This last time that I saw it in the theaters this last summer. For some reason, I was a little bit bored.
Oh.
But yeah, there was just something about it that wasn't as especially once he starts training with Syndrome and kind of that middle section, it starts to get a little like, come on, let's go. But I do love a lot of things about it. I love that it shows like actual conflict in marriage. I can think of almost any other family film that actually shows like you can have conflict and that's okay. And I love that that's sort of the like true threat to the kids, not that there's this evil person, but that is the marriage going to be okay? It's really cute and funny. And I like the whole idea of Bob trying to be something that he's not. And that's why I think the beginning kind of works the best. And because there's just nothing more toxic in life than trying to be something that you're not. And him trying to play this role, which he just so does not fit, like in this insurance, thing. And so that rings true. So yeah, a lot of stuff that I like, but I don't know, I just didn't love it as much on this last watch as I had before. So it did go down a little bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's much higher for me, and I will get more into detail there.
What do you have at 11?
My 11 is Coco.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really, I remember really, really liking it in the theater, and I don't think I've seen it all the way through again after that, maybe once. And it's not because, it's, I don't think it's good or anything. It is. It's really, really good. I just think maybe that, I like others just a bit better. But and I think the whole anti-music thing is a bit forced in a way. It's just so, because especially in a culture where music is such an integral part of it all. And it's really weird how the especially like the family, how they're just like so anti-music just because it was a musician who basically betrayed them and all of that. I thought the twist was well done. I didn't quite expect it in a way, and I think they do a good job telling the story without going into detours that feel like detours. I thought everything felt deliberate. It felt like it needed to be there in order to tell the story and to introduce this world. And I heard one funny quote of another film reviewer, one of the co-hosts of Welcome to the Basement, which is a great YouTube show, and he said that he watched this film on TV. And after I saw it, my TV threw itself off the shelf and said, "I'm done. I'm exhausted," because this film feels like it invented new colors.
Yeah,
it's such an incredibly gorgeous looking film, and that is just absolutely commendable. And it's so creative in that regard. And overall, not a lot of faults with it. I found this whole aspect of the culture, especially because I wasn't quite familiar with it all.
Right.
I found how they depicted that through animation and, with Western audiences in mind. I found all of this quite fascinating. And, especially when it's about, this is a film about death and the afterlife. And the way they depicted it was something that was, it was understandable for kids. It was still friendly enough for kids. And also felt like a pretty hopeful film in that regard. And yeah, I guess that's it for me.
Yeah. My number 10 is where I have Luca. This was an easy win for me because, again, I love stories about friendship, and I loved the just sort of simple story of these two boys and just wanting to run and wanting to enter this race and have a Vespa, like they didn't lose themselves in the script like so many of the other recent Pixar movies have done. It's just stayed very simple. And the Italian setting, the nods to Studio Ghibli, all were really really sweet and worked. And the animation, I did see this in the re-release and I really enjoyed it again. Yeah, I would say maybe this is a little underappreciated. I think just because it came out during the pandemic and it just yeah, but I really love it.
It's higher on mine,
Mm,
but yeah, I absolutely get your points.
yeah.
My number 10 is Onward.
Okay.
Because I found for reasons I already said, I found the whole fantasy stuff engaging. I found the whole brother stuff really relatable and fun as well performed, everything. And yeah, it's just I don't have much to add to what I already said, except that I'm kind of surprised that for now it's in the top 10. It might change,
Yeah.
but for now I didn't find any better place to put it.
Yeah. So what do you have at 9?
My number 9 is Incredibles 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where it's just like kind of like, yeah, it's more of the same and kind of like from a different point of view, but I enjoyed all of that. It's kind of like, yeah, clean continuation. And I liked the new angle. I like the new let's present you and let's do something new and all of that. And then the villain twist was a bit, yeah, all right. But everything around it was just, I thought, pretty well done. One thing I have a problem with in this film, it has nothing to do with the story or the writing or whatever. One of my problems is that the animation at this point has evolved so much that the character design, everything still works, but for some reason, I don't know if you noticed this too, every character has these wrinkles under their eyes, which makes them look older and really, really tired all the way through. And
Yeah.
because it has so much more detail now, that detail actually really bothered me. Where it's like
I
if
can see
if they
that.
didn't have those wrinkles under their eyes, I would like this movie a whole lot more because it was just so off-putting.
Yeah. I think it's a fun sequel. Not perfect, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like the way of how they actually had to put like, seizure warnings in
Oh
front of it.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, that wasn't well played, Disney. You should have thought about that earlier,
Right. Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that problem. Because the whole other thing, it worked just fine with a villain, but that was not well played.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my number 9 is Where I Have Monsters Inc.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, really enjoy it. Another friendship story, which I, love. Boo's super cute. All the world with the doors. It's got some good jokes, some good songs. Good music. Yeah, it's perfect. It's a really pleasant, fun little movie. So I have it at
Yeah,
9.
it's a bit higher for me, but I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So we're going to 8 now. What's your 8?
My 8 is Where I Have Ratatouille.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. Yeah, really, it's great story, beautiful animation, really captures the experience of being a critic, I think, well. And as a critic, I appreciate it. And Anton. And I mean, the only reason that it's like not higher is just because it does kind of gross me out at certain sequences. It's a little too realistic. Some of those rats, like, oh, it makes me a little but it's cute. I like it a lot.
All right. Yeah, it's higher for me, but I absolutely get it. My number 8 is Luca.
Yeah. Oh,
Because
good.
it was kind of the right movie at the right time for me. It's also one of those where it's like feels very personal, feels very different in terms of the animation and the story as well. And that's what I like about it so much. I think that they capture the setting beautifully, the whole town and the underwater world. It's so fun. It's so cute. It's so nice overall, and the character interactions. Like everybody has something to latch onto and
Mhm.
to have fun with. Like even the
Yeah.
villains, they're just so fun to hate. And it doesn't feel forced. It feels natural in this world. And I like that the climax is just, a standard bike race
Yeah, I
actually.
do too.
and how they play around with them getting wet and having to dry
Yeah.
up again and all of that stuff. Like it's just very, very well edited. It's well timed. The voice acting, the music, everything just works so well. Yeah, like I was kind of surprised that, oh yeah, it was actually in my top 10.
Mm.
But yeah, for now it is because I just think it overall just works really well. It's a really, really good, very new kids movie that feels old-fashioned in a nice way. It reminded me a lot of, yeah, some of the like more kid-friendly Hayao Miyazaki
Yeah,
films. Like
agree.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Number 7 is where I have Toy Story 2.
Mhm.
Really enjoy this story for Woody, having to kind of decide, does he want to be played with or does he want to be looked at and admired? Like both have value. I like the fact that they gave him like 2 choices that are like could be a good life, like that's always it's interesting. And of course Jessie is a big win. New character, she's great, and
So
her
fun.
song, oh my gosh.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so it's really good. And of course I introduced Barbie. I'm a big Barbie fan, so that's fun. So that was my number 7. Where are you at? Where are you at? I've lost track.
Okay, my number 7 is Monsters Inc.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Because oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, it's
It's
really
just
good.
so good. Like it's so funny, and the whole scenario is so creative. Like being like the other world behind the with the closet doors and all of that, and just the way like there's a reason why we have to scare kids, and then later on how it evolves, and where it's such a great message at the end, basically, and it's such an ending, also a surprisingly moving ending, and it's so creative and fun, and you just can quote it endlessly. It's so well performed. It's well written, and
Yeah.
the animation still really works. And back then it was again like groundbreaking, some of the stuff they did. So I don't have a lot more to add other than it's just one of those timeless classics.
Yeah. Well, number 6 for me is where I have Wall-E.
Oh, right.
Love Wall-E. Love the animation. Love the story. I love Wall-E and Eva. So cute. And they do Hello Dolly better than Hello Dolly. Whenever I go, because I'm a theater critic as well. So whenever I see Hello Dolly, I always think of Wall-E. And it only takes a moment to last your whole life through. I mean, oh, it's wonderful. And the dance in space, absolutely beautiful.
Oh.
And I know some people don't like the human's arc, but I think the arc for the captain is actually quite moving. When he decides that he wants to actually live and not just go through this sort of nameless, bland experience, but when he sees that he can have more. And I think that's moving and lovely. And so it's great. Probably, and I'm not that big of like a sci-fi person, so if it can win me over, that says a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's higher for me, so we'll get to that.
At 6?
My number 6 is Up.
Okay, yeah.
Up, because it's so good. And a lot of people always say, oh yeah, blah blah blah, the first 10 minutes, and then they kind of forget about the rest. I think the whole movie is wonderful. Just the first 10 minutes are just so great and so moving, and I absolutely understand it.
Yeah.
But
it's a movie about regret, and he feels like he did not give Ellie the life that he promised. And so when he sees that inscription in the book at the end, and that she really did love him all along, it gets me every time.
But that's one weird thing. Like in all of those days, he never ever even accidentally saw the rest of that book. It's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, it's fair.
But I mean, not more of a stretch.
But you have to take a lot of leaps with this movie. I mean, that these balloons would carry to this house. And
that's true, and also like the
months would be this same age.
If it is still being live, I always attributed that to the fact that the VR is just so much better there.
Well, what because I have the art book for up, and it said that they had originally planned that Kevin's eggs had like a fountain of youth quality to them. That's why he was so obsessed with getting them, and so there was going to be this whole like plot, but they got lost in the weeds of it, and they were just like, you know what, it's such a good movie that people will forgive us that one plot hole, and I think that they were right, that's true.
Yeah, it's just, they simplified it, and that's good.
Yeah.
What matters is, how he works as a villain, and all the rest. It's funny, and it's really, really cute, and really moving in the right spots. It's one of the top tier Pixar films for a reason.
Yeah. Well, my number 5 is Where I Find Nemo.
Mine too.
Perfect. I love it. I love how it managed to tell both stories, both Nemo and Marlin's stories, and it's got so many funny lines. Bruce the shark is one of my favorite parts, hilarious. And Darla, hilarious. I thought that was so funny.
With the Psycho soundtrack.
And I love the ocean. And so just the way they were able to capture like the coral reef and scenes like the jellyfish, just unbelievably still hold up today. It's kind of maybe a perfect film. I can't think of almost anything that I would really change about it. It's so satisfying.
It's one of those films, like one of those timeless, perfect films where it's also like every character is memorable because of, how they are designed and how it's played out. Like, no matter if it's the sharks, no matter if it's the fish who are like mimicking other things,
right?
or like everybody in the aquarium, like even though they have the little screen time, everybody has kind of like a funny quirk you remember.
Yeah,
and everything around it. It's so smart that they go to so many different places, and everywhere they just meet like different species, and so many different scenarios to do everything they possibly can, basically, with this whole scenario and this whole type of story. And it's absolutely wonderful. And it's also one of the things where the trope of the overbearing father doesn't feel too forced.
Right.
It feels very, very reasonable. And how they evolve and everything. It's just so well and naturally done. And it's a beautiful film. It's one of the big, again, top tier Pixar classics. And it deserves every praise it gets.
Yeah. So what do you have at 4?
My 4 is Inside Out.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because I really, really like it. It's a really fun film, and they do fun things with the whole scenario. And I mean, the sequel is the reason why we are doing this list, basically. So we're finally admitting to it. And it's not that I think, the sequel is going to be bad or whatever. I'm sure, it's gonna be just fine. But this one is just. It hits all the right spots for me, and it's very creative animation. Something I noticed in the theater was like how the emotions are basically, they're made up of like those tiny little glowing specks, basically, and you can see them at the edges of the character designs, and it's so interesting, and I think emotionally works really well. There's one problem I have with the film, and it's when they meet those characters. And they say, oh yeah, sometimes we send these bolts of memories or whatever. We send these in the up in the head. And
Mhm.
it's like at that point, give them those orbs, those main orbs, and the whole thing would be over basically. And they could
Mm.
just send him up there. But whatever, it's an oversight. I can excuse it because the
Yeah.
whole rest. It is one of the most like heart-wrenching scenes for me with
Bing bong.
with the imaginary friend. It's oh my God, I almost cried my eyes out. Like when I saw it the second time, my mother was with me, and she's like, "Jesus, it's just a film, you know." I'm like, but I was
Yeah.
absolutely devastated by the whole thing, and it's just overall like all these like weird abstract concepts. I think they find really really interesting ways to portray those,
Yeah.
and yeah, for those and many other reasons. And I love the running gag with the earworm. Basically, that's
Right.
one of my
Yeah. That's really fun.
favorite
That
things.
it's like double mint
It's
gum or whatever it was.
it's so funny. I
Yeah.
like the whole dream sequence, which turns into a nightmare and all of that.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And I like, and one of the biggest laughs actually is the one that kind of like scared my brother when they let the clown out, and because it's like
Oh,
who's my birthday kid, and that was when I was just losing it because it was so funny.
yeah. It is very funny.
Yeah.
Congratulations, San Francisco. You ruined pizza. First the Hawaiians and now you. My number 4 is where I have Coco, and I
Oh,
love I love this story of I think this was how you do generational trauma, right? Disney's been trying to do this over and over and over again, and I think this. I mean, I really do love Encanto. So it's like both of them. I think this is it. Like they did it, and but kind of coming to understand, I guess, your family a little bit better, your ancestors, have a respect for your ancestors, and but that you can still like there's this good mixture of sort of honoring your family but also being independent and strong and that you see in the movie. I think Remember Me is one of the most beautiful songs I think I've ever heard. It is
oh,
just absolutely beautiful, and the like by the end when you just want to, I think we can all relate to that desire to wanting to be remembered, and
yeah.
it taps into that, and that's why I think it works so well. And it's such a beautiful song, and yeah, I just yeah, so that's where I have it at 4. What do you have at 3?
My number 3 is The Incredibles.
Yeah.
Because I think it's, I think Brad Bird did some of the best stuff for Pixar. And this was also a landmark in that it was the first Pixar film which had humans as the focus.
Mm-hmm.
And because also it's so obvious that they took the right approach. And yeah, we're not quite there when it comes to like realistic characters or whatever, but it's great that you can see the 2D origins of the characters and the way they are designed. They look like, typical 2D character designs, but in 3D. And it works wonderfully. And this was one of the first animated movies as a kid where I really noticed the writing because it's so different to other
Yeah.
animated films, especially from the time. The writing feels so realistic in the way
Mm-hmm.
that there's a lot of scenes of characters just sitting down and talking, and the talking feels really real and really natural as well. Like you can
Yeah.
tell they fine-tuned it just enough without anything like coming across forced or whatever. Like for example, the scene where the mother talks to the kids about like these are actual bad guys and
Yeah,
they're
they
gonna
will kill
kill you when
you.
they get the chance.
Yeah.
And the whole like argument about for the kid Dash, in school, and the whole like
Mm-hmm.
when him and Frozone are sitting in the car and they're just talking, reminiscing about the whole thing. Yeah, he's monologuing and whatever. Like everything, the whole dialogue. That was one of the first times I really noticed dialogue in an
Mm.
animated film, and for that alone,
Yeah,
it's
and that
great.
is a good line when everybody's incredible, nobody is.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
The villain really works. Also,
Mm-hmm.
like his demise and how it comes back to cape running gag. It's great. I really like that this is actually a Pixar movie with a real body count where people die. And you
Yeah.
could tell that they die. And it's not
True.
something we really shy away from, but it's still in that area of it's fine because it's quick enough. But
Mhm.
it's so good. Like Brad Bird is so gifted when it comes to that stuff. And this is also like the world's introduction to Michael Giacchino, basically. And it's
Mhm.
funny how they originally wanted John Barry, and then Michael Giacchino was hired to basically
Mm.
do a John Barry score, and he does it with flying colors.
Yeah.
And later on, like the
It's a great
career
score.
he's gotten afterwards, it's amazing. No, overall, it's a great movie in so
Yeah.
many aspects, and I love it so much. And those and many others are the
Mhm.
reason why it's in the top three for me.
Yeah. Yeah. My number 3 is Where I Have Up.
Oh, right.
And for all the reasons we talked about, being the story about regret and forgiveness and love. And I had a really close relationship with my grandpa. He passed away in 2001, and I miss him every day of my life. And when I watched this, even though he was not surly like Carl at all, but I just miss him. And there's just something about their love story and the character, and especially when he at the end finds a new reason to live, go and have a new adventure. I don't know, just I love that. And uh so yeah, I know a lot of people like things like the talking dogs and stuff is too much, but I love the film so much that when I bought my house, I had it was right around my birthday, and I had
Hmm.
I've always wanted to have one of those like fancy cakes. And I had an up themed fancy cake for my housewarming party.
Oh,
It was like, yeah, 3 stories. It was a lot of fun.
that's really great.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I want to say about the dogs, I think the film does a genius thing where you see the big bad dog basically, and the first thing I thought is, all right, this is gonna be the killjoy. This is gonna be a killjoy of a movie, and then he speaks, and then it's this
It's
high
funny.
pitched
Yeah.
voice,
Yeah.
and that is such a great turnaround that
Yeah.
I was like, movie, I love you even more now.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
just such a great idea, and it's so simple and so stupid, but it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. What do you have at 2?
My number 2 is Wall-E.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
It's wonderful, and I was really impressed. It's also one of the like cinema experiences I can really vividly remember. I also think, Wall-E had one of the best Pixar shorts in front of it, the one with the magician and the bunny.
Oh, yeah, that one's fun.
I think I mean, it's called Presto, and that's I think
Mhm.
what their like animation system is called now. So they named it
Mhm.
after this movie, or maybe the movie is named after it. I'm not sure, but it's one of the best and funniest shorts. And the movie itself, I mean, that was also one of the films which at that point in my age showed me a lot of things I hadn't seen before. Be it this like, world being overwritten by, garbage, and also when we first see the humans in their spaceship, and that was something I was like, oh my god, this is so weird and out there and creative and all of that. And it's also one of my favorite love stories of all time. It's just so well
Yeah.
done and so cute. It's so moving,
Mhm.
and everything
Same.
in this film just works so perfectly. Be it down to like the look, the
Mhm.
characters, how they interact, and the music is wonderful, and everything about it is something that like very very even few Pixar movies
Yeah.
achieve when it comes to their when it comes to artistry, when it comes to pacing, when it comes to telling this kind of story, and also in character design and everything. It's absolutely wonderful.
I agree. I agree. My number 2 is Where I Have Inside Out. I love the whole creativity and ingenuity of the world, and how it's basically telling Joy's story and telling Riley's story at the same time. So you've kind of dual narrators, which makes it really like compelling. And I love the animation. I love the idea of sort of sadness being important, in life. Like Joy goes from basically believing that happiness is fun at the beginning of the story, and by the end she has this much richer understanding of what happiness really is for Riley and for herself. And Bing Bong, yeah, I love that. And it can be quite funny when Riley comes home and she says, "I miss home," and oh, I mean, that'd get me every time. And so yeah, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those phases where you can't fault anybody when they have a different number one or two spot or whatever,
Yeah,
when
for
it comes to
sure.
like top tier Pixar, because all of these films, it's really understandable why people would like them or put them higher for this or that reason.
Yeah. So what's your number one?
Well, my number one is Ratatouille.
Yeah, it's so cute. Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's not quite as tear-jerky as other Pixar films. It doesn't quite have that spot nailed down, even though I think the closing monologue of a critic is genius.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
Pure genius. It's so well done. It's so amazingly written. Because it's so true as well. But everything, it's still moving in a few spots. But what's missing in terms of, oh, this is like a big tear-jerking scene, it's making up for like gorgeous animation, which won't get old ever, I think. Like, this is one of those where they really nailed it down in terms of, this is timeless now. This is never gonna be, this is never gonna look dated in any way, even though it's at that point is at this point quite an old film comparatively. But the music is spectacular. One of Michael Giacchino's best scores in anything. The cast is amazing. The whole concept is so funny and out there, with the whole him controlling him by his hair and everything. And they just nail everything down in terms of like this whole like kitchen staff. Also their limited time for a lot of these characters, but their designs and their voice work make them so memorable. And really fun villains, because one of them turns out he's not so bad, but the main villain, basically, he's so much fun as well.
And I love the whole idea of being in defense of the new, that the world hates new and different, but every once in a while as a critic you have the opportunity to be in defense of the new. And so that's beautiful. Yeah, it's a great film. Well, my number one is where I have Toy Story. And again, I love stories about friendship, and this is one of the best ever made, I think, about friendship. And I love the arc that Woody and Buzz go on, as they started irritating, and Woody is so jealous, and Buzz is just being himself. Like, he is just an authentic character. He has no idea what he's doing. He's driving Woody so crazy. But how often in life do we let somebody just pick at us and pick at us and pick at us, and they're completely they have no idea, that they're driving us nuts, until it finally. I just think the script is so well calibrated, so that when he gets to that point where he says, "You are a toy. You're an figure. You are a child's plaything," that moment is earned, and we understand these characters so well. And
it's one of the best outrages of all time. It
really is. Yeah. And it's so creative and so funny, and it was so brilliant of them for their first movie, where everything looks really plasticky, to make basically characters that were plastic, to do it about toys. Brilliant. It was brilliant. So the animation doesn't bother me, because it totally fits with you see Andy and stuff, and Sid, I guess you see a little bit more of, but it's fine. It's fine.
Absolutely.
For me. Yeah. And the creativity. I think it's kind of fun that Sid is actually like, it just depends on whose perspective you're looking at, because Sid is actually like a pretty creative kid. He just,
the
story is being told from the perspective of the toys. So of course he's going to be
also they hint at something when it comes to his parents, which I thought was smart. And it's very smartly done, and some people might miss it, but the way they hint is, especially like the father figure in his life, it's like, I understand why he turned out this way.
Yeah, it's just in so many iconic lines. that wasn't that wasn't that wasn't flying. That was falling with style. And
Hollywood style. The one problem I have with the film is that they stretch the logic a bit when it comes to the toys, because when Buzz Lightyear, he thinks he's a real spaceman and all of that stuff. And by that logic, wouldn't he kind of like stay alive when Annie comes in and then try to attack him?
No, that's fair. Well, and also, does every toy go through this process? They seem kind of
it's one
surprised that. So, do some toys kind of know, and then, or is this unusual? Yeah, I mean that's totally fair.
That's one you can easily overthink, and you really shouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also funny when I rewatched the movie years ago again. I was really like, "What, Joss Whedon?"
Right. Yeah.
And he did like one of the like rewrites of a script and all of that, and it's really, really funny that I think his only Oscar nomination is actually the script.
Yeah. I mean, and people forget that it was nominated, and Finding Nemo as well for best screenplay.
And even like Big Incredibles took home 2 Oscars, one for the film and one in the sound department, actually. I think it was sound editing.
Yeah, that makes
or something.
sense. Yeah.
And
so, and You've Got a Friend in Me, like classic song.
Oh, yeah.
And
no problem with the song.
Yeah,
like I said, I have a problem with the score. But
right. Well, so there we go. We did it. We ranked all of the Pixar films. So let us know what you think, what your ranking would be. We'd love to hear in the comments section or on Twitter. And where can people find you in your content and all you do?
Well, you can find me everywhere online, Facebook and Twitter at Lasse Vogt. I have an own podcast which is called Fans About Films. You can find it everywhere where good and better podcasts can be found. I also am on Sideshow Sound Theater, where we do a brand new show now since a few months, and it's called the Sideshow Theme Show, where we talk about a specific theme from a specific score, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm also part of a Telestammtisch, and I write score reviews for scoregeek.wordpress.com, and I have a YouTube channel called The Deppard, where maybe I will do some more stuff in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I have to say to you, thank you so much for bringing me back for something that was a lot more positive than the last few things. And also, I'm really surprised that we got through this as quickly as we did. I actually think we spent more time on the Disney remakes, even though it was a shorter list. So really, really great. And it was so much fun hearing a different perspective on some of these films. With some of the rankings, you absolutely surprised me. But when it came to the higher ups, pretty much, no surprises, and all of them, I think, well-deserved and well-argued.
Yeah, and we had quite a few that were similar, Finding Nemo close, Luca, so there's things. So yeah, this was a delight to have you back. We'll definitely have you again. And again, if you're listening, we want to hear your picks and what you think of our ranking in the comments. There's no wrong ranking. Most of these are really great films. So, let us know. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following me at Hallmark's podcast. Lots of fun stuff going on over there. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate that. And check out the Patreon group. That's the biggest way you can support us. And I really appreciate that. And we have the merch store and hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. So take a look at that. And thanks again. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye-bye.